This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Welcome to episode 11 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today we're going to talk again about getting lost. I think when we travel, getting lost is something that happens quite regularly. Now, back in episode 2, I talked to a couple of people about the terror of getting lost, some quite scary stories about what happened when some of our fellow travellers couldn't find their way. And if you want to relive some of their horror stories, then do go back to episode 2. But today we're going to talk about the magic of getting lost, because I think most of the time getting lost on your travels actually leads to a fun story, discovering something different, all kinds of unexpected surprises that we wouldn't have stumbled across if we weren't getting lost. Now, my first guest today is a dear travel blogging friend of mine, Dianne Bortoletto of Traveletto, and she's actually another Perth-based blogger. But we only met up once we both discovered we were travel bloggers. And last year we were lucky enough to travel together to Bangkok to attend the TBEX Travel Blog Exchange conference. And she and I both recall very fondly a particular moment on that trip when we were, well, kind of lost. So we had a very a fun time chatting about it the other day.
Well, we'd been at a networking function, hadn't we? And I'd taken advantage. No, where were we?
No.
It doesn't matter, but I'd taken advantage of the drinks that were on offer. I remember that because the beer was cold and it was a hot day, and I remember it all went down very nicely. And then all of a sudden it was time to go to the next place where we were due in Bangkok, and up until that point you'd been pretty much the leader when it came to getting on trains, making sure we were on the right train going in the right direction to the right place. And this time with the Dutch courage, I was like, yeah, let's go. And we're chatting away and laughing and life's grand, and we jump on a train. Except the door's shut and you don't jump on the train and you're left on the platform.
Do you remember why I didn't jump on the train? Because it is entirely my fault. Because I was busy taking a photo. Because all
blog.
good bloggers take photos, and I was taking a photo of where the nice marks are on the ground where people line up so nicely, because I thought that was so amazing. So, yeah, so that's why I didn't jump on the train. I was like in my own little land of taking blog photos. So go on.
So the sliding doors of the train shut. I'm in the carriage, you're on the platform, and so I'm waving goodbye to you as the train takes off. Still, full of Dutch courage, and then all of a sudden I see a train station that I'm not familiar with, and I think, hang on a minute. And I look around and then I think, oh, God, I'm on the wrong train. Where are we going? Where am I going? Anyway, so I got chatting to, I said all this out loud because at that point I couldn't internalise anything. And
I didn't know that.
And a very nice English guy who was standing next to me on the train said, oh, do you know where you need to go? And I said, yes, I do. It's this station over here, and pointing to the map. I said, that's okay. I'll jump off at the next station, switch over onto the other platform and go back the right direction, the way I need to go. And he was really kind. He said, oh, do you need some help? Do you want me to come with you? I said, no, I'm all good. So I went back to our home station where our hotel was, and I got to the platform and I thought, oh, dear, what do I do? Amanda could be anywhere. Yeah, because you'd had a little bit of Dutch courage yourself, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I had, I'm afraid. Yes, and it was quite late at night by now, I believe. So, yes.
It was.
It was consuming some of the hospitality, let's put it that way.
That's right. Yes, that's right. It would be rude not to. So
exactly.
so there I am on the train platform by myself, late at night in Bangkok, thinking, what do I do? I could just go back to the hotel. I'm sure Amanda, she's a big girl, she'll figure out that that's probably where I'll be. Or And as I was there scratching my head, just thinking, I don't really know what to do next. There comes a train up to the platform, and there's you standing at the door, dying in laughter. At that point, the tears started streaming down my face as I double over in laughter, just think, oh my God. And anyway, we were reunited, and everyone's safe and happy.
Dear. Well, yeah. I had a little fun adventure because I wasn't quite as tuned in as you, because I'd gone past the first wrong station because I recognised it because I had been in that direction on another occasion, and so it didn't seem so unusual to me that the train stopped at that station. It was only when it got to the next one, because I knew I should go 2 stops, and when I got to that second stop and it was completely the wrong one, and I just started laughing. I'm sure all the people around me thought I was completely insane because I just couldn't stop laughing, because not only had we lost each other, we'd also gone in the completely wrong direction. And it should be said, we actually hadn't had that much hospitality. We would just... I don't know, it was just a simple error.
But, just relax. I was just relaxed, it wasn't, we weren't tripping over ourselves or anything like that.
No, we were just not really paying much attention to what we were doing, that's all. So I laughed and laughed and laughed, and because I'd already been... I think people had already thought I was a bit odd on this train, because in my mode of taking photos, I'd spotted one of those ones where the monks should sit on the seat. So instead of, this seat is reserved for disabled people or whatever, this seat is reserved for monks, which I think is just so cool. And so I was trying to take a subtle photo of that, not let anyone think that I was taking photos of them, because I didn't, want to be so bold. And anyway, so they'd watched me trying to do this. I don't think I was very subtle about it at all. And then they saw me just burst into this laughter when we were pulling into that second station. So then I did manage to pull myself together and think, okay, well, I'll just turn around and go back the other way, and I'm sure I'll find Di in the end. And we did. So it's all good.
You did. So the moral of the story is to pay attention when you get on a train. And
actually pay attention before you even get on the train, and make sure it's going in the right direction.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Oh, fun times. That was a good trip.
That was a great trip. But yeah, it was only afterwards that I realised maybe that 10 years earlier I probably would have completely freaked out at that moment. Whereas, in fact, I just laughed because I knew that, it was good to know that you're an experienced traveller, so I knew that you would be fine and you would end up in the right place, and I knew that I would be fine. So it was all okay. Whereas 10 years earlier, or if it had been my 6-year-old who had got on the train without me, then I would have completely freaked out. But
we would have had half of Bangkok freaking out with you, I'm probably. Sure, because that would have been terrible.
That would have been awful, but I could trust you. I mean, I trust him too. But yes, so it was okay. It was just funny. So that was all good. So that little moment of getting lost worked out okay, as they so often do, and I can still, in my mind, see Di's face as the train door closed and she realised that she was on the train and I wasn't. But really I should take fairly full responsibility. I was too busy taking pictures. I'll try not to do that next time. Now, our second guest today is one of my favourites, Kiliii Fish, who has appeared on a couple of episodes previously. Kiliii is a photographer and really an adventurer, and in this particular instance he was on the trail of a famous Ecuadorian indigenous basket maker. So he was travelling across the countryside of Ecuador, or into the Andes I believe, and trying to find this particular woman, and it just was a bit tricky, as it turned out.
One of my most fabulous getting lost times was I had a moment when I was going after a basket maker, an Ecuadorian indigenous basket maker, and she does a kind of plaited basket weaving that is almost lost among her people and in the highlands of Ecuador, in the Ecuadorian Andes. And so, I talked to a few people who knew what town she was in and her name, but, that's all they knew. And they were like, "Oh, it'll be no problem. That's a small town. You'll be able to get over there. So just hop on the bus." And so, I'm at the train station, and at that time, my Spanish wasn't that good, so I'm looking around and trying to figure out all the timetables, and there's 40 different stalls with bus timetables on them. And so after getting redirected at 6 different stalls, I ended up on a bus, and it's a beautiful drive through the Andes.
Good.
It's just a really lovely, beautiful cloud, kind of foggy and cloudy, and then pretty soon I wake up and the bus driver says, "Okay, here you go."
Oh, just like that.
Yeah, that's right. And I get out, and it's the middle of a cornfield. And so, I'm still a little bit dazed because I haven't been awake that long. And I get up and I walk around, and the bus takes off down this dirt path. And I look around, and as far as the eye can see, all there is corn.
Oh no! Oh wow!
Corn and mountainous corn, like rolling hills of corn.
No signs of life apart from corn.
No, nothing. Just a couple, it's just a few sounds of birds and things, and everything was just cloaked in this spooky kind of low-lying fog. And I was like, all right, well, I can figure this out.
That's really optimistic of you. I love it.
So I walk around I'm walking around on the paths, and I kind of kick into my wilderness mode, which is out here clearly there are no roads or streets that are what I think of as a road or street. So I'm going to have to think about it in terms of trails, and so I poke around, and eventually I see that there's like a pretty well trodden trail through the corn.
Oh wow!
Fairly close to the bus stop. So I figure, all right, fine, but the corn is actually quite tall, so I actually have to stand up on my tiptoes to see over it.
Sounds a bit of a horror movie.
Right?
Yeah, I'm a bit creeped out already. I'm glad I know that obviously you live to tell the tale, but anyway, keep going. I want to know how you got out of this one.
Yeah. So I go down the trail a bit, and eventually, off in the distance, it kind of opens out, and I see this valley, and down in this valley, there's two buildings, but they're pretty tiny. They look like big wall tents in size, but they're mud huts. And so I thought, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I can see that there's a dog roaming around there, and so I walk down there, and inside one of them is this little old lady, and she's just sitting there, and she's grinding corn.
I thought, I was hoping she was going to be making baskets.
Yeah, no. It was already way better than it could have been, right? It could have been Kruger or something.
Yeah, I suppose so. Okay, all right. So you find this lady grinding corn.
Yeah, she's grinding corn. So I talked to her for a little bit, just kind of chatting and chilling out with her. And then finally I ask her about the lady, thinking it's going to be a long shot. And she says, oh yeah, no problem. You just go out that way. And she points out in a direction. And I look out, and it's the same thing. All I see is corn.
Oh no, more and more corn.
Yeah, more and more corn. So, okay, so I figure out there's another trail. I walk up that ways. About 15 minutes later, I end up at the home of this guitar maker. And so he sits me down, and we hang out and have a drink of some kind of alcohol.
Sometimes it's better not to know what it is, I think.
That's right. It was pretty strong, but it was pretty delightful, and it was fun to watch him because that was his workshop, and he had constructed he had a couple of workshop tables inside this mud hut that were very well and purpose built to building guitars. And while I was sitting there, he did like most of the body work on the assembly of a guitar. So I couldn't leave. I was like, this is awesome.
Wow, what a great thing to stumble upon. How cool.
Right? Yeah, it was fantastic. And I got some photographs, and then at a certain point, I figured I had to go. So I asked him if he knew the lady, and he said, oh yeah, no problem. It's just up that way. And of course, I'm looking out, and it's the same thing.
Was it at least in the same direction that you'd been pointed the first time?
It was, it wasn't backwards.
Okay, so similar. All right. Okay, but more corn.
And so I walked up a ways, and then, after a while, after about another 15 minutes or so, I actually end up on a cobblestone road, and the cobblestone road takes me to a set of buildings, and there are actually people inside of semi-modern homes.
This sounds promising.
I walk around, and yeah, definitely a little bit better. And eventually I did find Carmen, the basket weaver, and she was a lovely woman. Well, it was hard to speak with her because of my Spanish. She didn't speak any English at all, so it was a lot of watching and gesturing and stuff. But she was really it was a beautiful place to end up because this was truly a pretty remote village. But you get the sense that people there seamlessly transition from living out there in the huts amongst the corn, where they're highly agricultural. Their whole lives revolve around the fields and doing all the work with what they have around them, and then only very occasionally kind of moving in and out of these kind of larger villages and larger cities. So yeah, it was a very, very beautiful place. But yeah, I wasn't sure. I definitely have to say when I stepped off the bus, I had no idea where I was going and what adventure I was going to be on.
But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? And then you had a couple of interesting experiences on the way to actually meeting the lady you were chasing. So I think, I mean, as long as you live to tell the tale, I think it's getting lost is usually a blessing.
Yeah, and I when I ended up getting back, I had myself a really beautiful handmade guitar, so kind of a win-win, really.
So once again, getting lost turned out to be perfectly okay, and Kiliii got to have some other really worthwhile experiences along the way. So, as I've always said, we really shouldn't be too worried about getting lost. And in fact, my next guest, Joe Baur of the Without a Path podcast, actually tries to get lost. He has an interesting take here on intentionally getting lost, or at least not knowing where he's going when he travels.
I don't get lost often. I don't think with Google Maps, and you have, even if you're international and you got that little blue dot you can follow around, it's kind of hard to truly get lost. But when I do get lost, it's just in terms of getting on a train and not getting off until I just feel like getting off and kind of walking around. My wife and I did that in Switzerland.
Intentionally getting lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially in cities when you don't know. Rather than spending like 2 hours being like, well, where do you want to go, and Googling things and Yelping things and trying to figure it out, just get on a train, go, and kind of get off when you're like, oh, well, that looks interesting. And my wife and I did that to an extent in Zurich, Switzerland. We were taking a train around town. We had like kind of an extra day and just got off when it suited us. Other than that, it could just be walking around wherever you are and going until you feel like turning around. We certainly did that a lot in our little town, Ciudad Colón, Costa Rica. We had what's cool about Costa Rica is that everything around you can be turned into a hike. So we would often just kind of we would go outside, leave our house, our apartment, start walking, maybe see something off in the distance on top of a mountain and just walk towards that for a long time. And if we got tired, we'd return back.
That sounds fabulous. I think that is a great way to explore somewhere.
Yeah, it worked for us.
Can I head you back to Zurich in Switzerland? What did you discover when you hopped off anywhere you liked in Zurich?
It wasn't anything like, I guess, poignant. It was just we're drawn to cities. We're drawn to like walkable areas, places with a lot of people. And I can't remember the area off the top of my head. It's in my. If people go to my website and look for my latest Switzerland video, there's shots of it. So I guess I could try to figure it out.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect. There we go. Nice plug. But we were taking the train. We got off where we found this. It was alongside the lake, and there was just lots of people cycling, people walking. There were like mimes out doing their thing. There was some street musicians, and just a lot of stuff going on. And we're drawn to that, so we just got off the train and took a look around, got on the train again, and kind of got off into a dead end and just kind of called it a day.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. Switzerland's a great place to do that in, I think. My sister-in-law lives in Basel, and so we spent quite a bit of time in Switzerland. And, yeah, it's got a lot of atmosphere and a lot of action, and, yeah, you can't really go wrong.
Right, yeah, it's my favorite country to just get on a train and just go.
Actually, you remind me, when I lived in Bratislava in Slovakia, we had, as a teacher, we were given a transport pass that was valid for everywhere in the city. And we'd often have long gaps between classes. And so I had a bit of a mission to travel to the end of every tram line just to see what was there. And it was quite fascinating sometimes. But then I'd end up somewhere where thought I shouldn't be, and I was begging for the next tram to come along. But at least I saw all of the tram lines, and it was intentional getting lost. I kind of knew where I was, but it was something fun to do and to see what's out there.
Sometimes it's the end of the line for a reason.
Joe really did make me laugh with his contribution there, that sometimes it's the end of the line for a reason. And I have to say, some of those end stations on the outskirts of Bratislava were, definitely not actually the places that I probably wanted to visit. They were a bit out of the way. Anyway, I hope that my three guests have helped convince you that there is definitely some magic to getting lost. Getting lost is not something we should worry too much about, and definitely not something we should fear, because pretty much all the time something kind of magical happens when we get lost on our travels. It's almost a pity that we're so well connected and have all our great handy technology these days, so that Google Maps or some kind of navigation system can help us get anywhere we want to go, because I'm sure that we've cut down our incidence of getting lost, and that's probably a shame if we look at all the different magic that can happen. I certainly can remember very clearly several times, especially in Asian countries, when I've been quite lost trying to find a hostel or some kind of accommodation that I've made a booking at, and local people have swept me up and walked me so far out of their way to help me find where I needed to go, and chatted to me and given me tips, and just had such a lovely warm introduction to a new place. All kinds of those magical experiences of getting lost are still strong in my memory. So please go out there and get lost. All right, now I need to thank my lovely, lovely guests today. So first of all, Dianne Bortoletto of Traveletto. So she's at traveletto.com. That's got 2 L's and 2 T's. And you can find lots of interesting tales of her travels there. She has a double life in public relations, but often gets to travel for that as well. So you'll find all sorts of interesting stuff there. And again, to thank the delightful Kiliii Fish. He's at www.kiliii.com, which is Kiliii. You know, I always remark on his 3 eyes. He has so many great stories to tell. I'm going to have to interview him again soon, I think, just to top up my Kiliii supply. And finally, Joe Baur of joebaur.com, and that's Baur. Because he'd mentioned Switzerland in this extract, I had a read around his website and I discovered that the Baur is the Swiss spelling of Baur. And he actually has some Swiss heritage. So I thought that was very interesting. And you can also find his great podcast, Without a Path, either at withoutapath.com or just look up Without a Path on iTunes. I was lucky to be a guest there a few months back. And he always interviews some really interesting people and me. I'm not classing myself with those interesting people, but you know what I mean. All right. So thank you so much for listening to episode 11 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. And as always, all of these details and more will be in the show notes. And for this episode, that will be at notaballerina.com/11. I would love it if you could leave a rating or a review on iTunes if you've been enjoying the podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at Amanda Kendall. Use the hashtag ThoughtfulTravelPod. Or if you prefer Facebook, then you can look me up under Not a Ballerina. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.
Jackrabbit FM.
For your ears.
Who is that? Hi, podcast.